Pakistan, the 23rd largest economy by purchasing power parity and home to 230 million people, is currently facing a complete economic collapse. This is not the kind of economic collapse experienced by advanced economies, but could genuinely see the world's fifth largest population dealing with mass starvation beyond the potential for massive human suffering. Pakistan's influence and reliance on major economic events in the world have attracted the attention of many economists due to its influence and reliance on a lot of major economic events in the world. Pakistan has one of the world's largest foreign workforces, with as much as 10 of the country's GDP being sent in from their workers abroad back home to their families. These workers are primarily finding jobs in places like Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and the cooperative Gulf states, areas that have stirred up a lot of controversy for their global politics and their treatment of these very workers. Understanding the economics of the other side of this labor force can teach us a lot about how these issues will evolve into the future. Pakistani workers also send billions of dollars home every year from countries like the UK, the USA, Australia, and the EU, so the fate of this country has very real ramifications for our own economies and their workforces. Finally, for better or worse, Pakistan's economy is often viewed through the lens of the hostile relationship it has with India, a major economic power in the region and another home to a lot of the same industries. A lot of economists are comparing the current economic collapse in Pakistan to the economic collapse in Sri Lanka that has played out over the last 2 years. It is easy to assume that many low-income or developing economies are just inevitably going to suffer from an economic catastrophe after economic catastrophe. There is definitely some logic to that assumption, but nations that are not as established in the global economy are going to find it harder to borrow money from reputable institutions at reasonable interest rates. Advanced economies, such as Japan, can sustain a level of government debt that is 260,000% of its total national GDP because it borrows money in yen and is extremely stable and widely recognized globally. Japan is also able to borrow money from its own citizens because it is home to a lot of very wealthy people that need somewhere to put their money. Pakistan would struggle to borrow money in its own currency because its own population is not wealthy enough to satisfy the borrowing requirements of the government, and international institutions don't want to make loans denoted in Pakistani rupees because there is significant foreign exchange rate risk involved in dealing with a currency that is rarely used outside of Pakistan itself. Good economic management, political stability, and a generally lower level of things like institutional corruption do help advanced economies avoid a lot of the economic crises experienced by developing economies. However, when things do go wrong, they have a lot more wiggle room to mess up before their economies can recover. Advanced economies are more secure on an individual level as they have highly value-added exports to offer to the global economy. For example, South Korea's devaluation in its currency would make their global exports more competitive, making them more attractive to international buyers and allowing them to sell more exports and welcome more tourists. This would help them self-correct the negative economic pressures and provide a consistent source of foreign income that could help them pay off any debts. However, Pakistan has a reputation for being unsafe and lacking in attractions that would draw adventurous tourists to other countries in the region. Despite these vulnerabilities, Pakistan used to have a reputation for being surprisingly resilient. In 1998, the Asian financial crisis hit many fast-growing economies in the region, starting in Thailand. The government was forced to float the Thai baht after they ran out of foreign currency. A floating exchange rate means that the price of a currency is determined by the global market demand for that currency. The opposite of a free-floating currency is a fixed or pegged currency, where the government sets the price of the currency 10 below what it would trade for in a free foreign exchange market. This system is popular amongst international investors because it gets rid of the foreign exchange rate risk they take when investing in foreign currencies. However, fixed exchange rates are very expensive to maintain, and the government needs to keep enough foreign cash in reserve at all times to make sure they can honor any transfer requests while exporting lots of staff and getting a constant supply of foreign dollars coming into an economy. When the Thai government could run out of money to keep their currency pegged, other similar economies could too. As a result, almost all of the countries involved had to admit defeat and let their currency become free-floating. Although they lost all of the advantages that came with a peg currency, their economies did suffer because of it. Pakistan was almost totally unaffected. Around the same time, Pakistan was also getting in trouble with the international community for openly testing nuclear weapons. In conclusion, advanced economies are more secure on an individual level as they have highly value-added exports to offer to the global economy. However, Pakistan is vulnerable to economic challenges like the one it is currently facing due to its reputation for being unsafe and lacking in attractions that would draw adventurous tourists to other countries in the region. To address this issue, Pakistan should focus on improving its infrastructure, reducing its dependence on imports, and ensuring that its citizens have access to the necessary resources to meet their basic needs. Pakistan's economy has been resilient and has experienced sustained growth despite facing numerous challenges. The country's economy was not very large or sophisticated to begin with, so it didn't have as far to fall as many of its neighbors at the same time. However, being able to survive a perfect storm of economic shocks still says a lot about how self-sufficient the nation could be. The current crisis started with COVID as the economy was cut off from a major source of foreign currency revenue, Pakistani workers abroad sending money back home as remittances. The workers would usually send the money as US dollars or some other globally recognized currency, and their families would trade in those dollars for rupees to use locally for their everyday lives. The government and exchange institutions would give out those rupees for American dollars, which would provide them with a foreign currency reserve. This was used by the government and big businesses to buy imports that the larger and more sophisticated economy had become reliant on, things like petroleum, fertilizer and machinery, without remittances, keeping the economy topped up with foreign reserves. The war in Ukraine increased the price of oil and agricultural supplies, so they had less money coming in and more money going out. The country also suffered from record floods that killed more than 1,700 people and added $30 billion worth of economic damages. These challenges started to turn into crises as the government attempted to control living costs for its financially vulnerable citizens by putting a cap on electricity and gas prices, which was a major expense for the government and businesses. The government has started banning a lot of imports, especially non-essentials, in an attempt to slow the rate at which foreign currency is leaving the country. Most of these efforts only accelerated the rate at which people are trying to swap out their rupees for more globally recognized currencies before it's too late. The government has put further restrictions on how much cash individuals can transfer, which has meant that the country now technically has 3 exchange rates: the central bank rate, private institutions adhering to government laws will exchange money at, and the black market rate. International institutions have offered support in the form of loans to help Pakistan restock its reserves and get back on track. However, these offers have come with strings attached and the expectation that Pakistan will fall in line with China's less popular geopolitical ambitions. If Pakistan is able to secure funding to keep its economy afloat despite the drop in confidence caused by the alarming headlines, there is no reason to believe that exports couldn't be resumed. Vital imports could be provided the people of the country start trusting their own currency, and that growth could get back to where it was before recent rounds of extreme economic shocks. Pakistan, with a GDP of $348 billion as of 2021, is a major global economy, currently the 42nd largest in the world. However, recent economic challenges are expected to reduce this number, resulting in a 6 out of 10 score. The GDP is spread over one of the largest populations in the world, with each individual contributing $1,575 worth of output annually. Stability and confidence are poor, with political rivalry and uncertainty about the economy's future. Pakistan's growth has been strong over the past decade but has stalled since 2018, resulting in a 6 out of 10 score. The country's basic economy has simple industries, an unskilled workforce, and no major global corporations. Despite its substantial natural resource wealth, Pakistan finds it difficult to properly exploit these treasures in its current economic condition. This gives it an average score of 4.2 out of 10. The country's current economic conditions make it an average score of 4.2 out of 10.